Europe's economy is in big trouble. People in Greece are now emptying their bank accounts. That's a run on the bank. That's when Mr. Potter comes in and he says, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar, George. Wanted to bring back Jim Rogers to tell us where we're headed. He's a guy who I really appreciate because he will tell you the truth. As I said before we went into the break, he doesn't speak a word of bullcrap. We've had him on a couple of programs when we were over at Fox, and honored to have you back here. Jim Rogers, legendary investor, chairman of Rogers Holdings, also author of the book, A Gift to My Children. Jim, economic collapse with the euro. Will that lead to a recession?
That will lead to the end of the world as we know it. That will certainly lead to the end of the world as Washington, D.C. knows it. There's no question about that. We do live in very perilous times, so I hope you're very careful and I hope you're prepared. You know why I'm late getting here? I stopped to buy some gold on the way. I'm not kidding, I did.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Now, the IRS will be over here after both of us.
Who's got like a billy club? We can take him. Is he really? You really? Is he?
Yeah, no, that's gold. That's a Canadian and that's a Chinese.
So these are new.
I have some old ones. You want to see my old ones too?
Yeah. Do you buy old ones too?
No, I don't buy the collector's type, numismatic. No.
Yeah, I do because I don't trust the government, but I don't trust the government in anything. I think they'll take anything.
Well, they will. They certainly will. But the problem with the new, in the world, it might happen, where there's so much chaos and turmoil, that they're not going to pay a premium for old and rare coins.
Oh, I don't care. I just want something at the end. I just want something.
Well, that'll be at the end. Everybody knows what that is. You'll be able to sell it, barter it if you have to. If it gets this bad.
Do you remember when Roosevelt, Roosevelt in, what was it, 33? 33.
I don't remember, but
yeah, no,
I
know, but I know. But I mean, history well enough. You remember history well enough to know that. And they would put you to jail for, what, 10 years for having this?
Yep, you couldn't open a safety deposit box without a member of the government watching you. Nobody could go to their safety deposit boxes unless an officer of the United States government was there to watch you open it.
You think that's coming again?
Well, I don't think they'll take gold away because in those days gold was in the monetary system. What they're more likely to do this time is take your pension plan or your IRA. They'll say, we're doing you a favor. What we're going to do in these, well, they always say that.
Right, yeah.
Come on, Glenn, they know they're always helping you. We're here from the government to help you.
To help.
For God's sakes, what's wrong with you? So what they'll say is, your pension has been fluctuating, there's been a lot of turmoil in the markets. What we're going to do, we're going to take your pension and we're going to give you a 30-year government bond. And we'll pay you 3%, 4%.
That's fantastic.
That way you
Could you do that to me again,
Yes,
Mr.
that's what I mean. They're here to help you. We're here to help you. We're here to save you. Then you'll have the guarantee of the United States government bond, and you don't have to fluctuate.
No, why do you
it's
say
hard
that
for me. I keep laughing. I know it's hard to say with a straight face.
I've been, hedge funds are going up, and they're just buying up farmland. Now, why would they do that?
Well, because there's shortages of food coming, serious shortages of food coming, for a variety of reasons.
Are you a conspiracy theorist? Because I've heard the government says these are all conspiracy theories.
What, the people buying farms?
Yeah, there's food shortages coming, that the government would...
Glenn, first of all, the government says that because the farmers are Republicans, and the government doesn't like Republicans. No, but you must understand, food prices have been disastrous for 30 years. Agriculture has been a disaster for 30 years. The average age of farmers in America is 58.
I think it's 62.
All right, we'll split the difference. It's 60.
All right.
Whatever it is. In 10 years, they'll be 70.
Right.
The average age of farmers in Japan is 66. The average age in Australia is 58. The highest rate of suicide in England is among agricultural people. The highest rate of suicide in India, hundreds of thousands of farmers commit suicide every year.
Why?
Agriculture has been a disaster. People cannot make a living as a farmer. So they're starving or committing suicide or doing something else. In America, we have more people who study physical education than study agriculture.
So what? Okay, so let's go through.
Well, let me just finish. Two last sentences. So we're running out of farmers in the first place, and if the price of, because food prices have been so low, so the prices are going to go very high to attract in labor, capital, management, so that farmers can make a living again. What you should do if you get tired of TV is become a farmer. That's where the money's going to be.
Oh, who says I'm not? All right. Take the average American through the difference and try to illustrate as much as you can. I tried to do it with grapes of wrath. Illustrate as much as you can the difference between a recession, how people will feel, a recession, a depression, and collapse.
Well, a recession is when your neighbor loses his job. And a depression is when you lose your job. And collapse is when nobody has a job. And there are people foraging in the streets. Happened in Argentina 10 years ago. It happened in Germany in the early 20s.
It never happened here. This is the United States of America. I try to say that. People actually say these things to me, Jim. It's crazy. It's never going to happen here. It's the United States of America. I'm like, oh.
Well, we've had periods of great turmoil in the United States. Do you remember Cox's Army back in the 30s when a military reserve veteran led many soldiers, ex-soldiers, marched on Washington because they couldn't work. There was no money. Things were desperate. In the end, the government bought them off. But they had thousands, tens of thousands, scores of thousands of ex-soldiers marching on Washington, demanding that they get taken care of.
I just bought an old book from the Civil War period, and it was a collection of things that people had done in the South. North and the South. Like the North had a hard time getting cotton. So how do we mend? How do we make our own fabric? What do we do? Medicines. What did they do? I mean, it's crazy stuff. But it has happened before here in America.
It certainly has. In the war between the states. Do you remember the song about a greenback dollar? That's because they were issuing pretty worthless paper money. That was the Northern government was doing that. Do you remember the Continental? Do you remember the expression, ain't worth a Continental? Continental dam? That was the currency. That was the Continental Congress issued Continental dollars, which became worthless.
My gosh, I remember my grandfather saying that. It's not worth a Continental dam.
Well, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That comes from American history. So when people say it can't happen here, it has happened. Do you remember the Everly Brothers, or somebody used to sing the song about not worth a greenback dollar? Don't
Jim,
give a damn?
I'm 21 myself. I don't remember any of these things.
Oh, well, okay. I'm old enough to remember all these things from American history. The greenback dollar was because Lincoln was issuing greenback dollars to pay for instead of gold, issuing paper money to pay for the war. And of course, in the South, the Confederate money became worthless when they lost the war.
All right, so take me through, first of all, I did a little thing the other day on China. Now the Fed is the biggest guarantor of our debt, bigger than China, which, help me out because I'm not an expert like you. He said we'd never monetize our debt. Isn't that monetizing our debt?
They've been buying our bonds. That's monetizing our debt.
Right,
yes,
okay, so
Mr. Bernanke said on national TV that he would never monetize the debt.
And they have.
And they have. And then
Right.
actually somebody sort of tripped him up and said, aren't you monetizing this debt? And he said, yes. In effect, we're monetizing the debt. And they are. When the government buys our own bonds,
Right.
that's called monetizing the debt.
Right, right. You and I would call it writing bad checks.
I'd call it monetizing the debt.
No, but I mean, if we were doing it in our
Listen,
life, we're writing a check to ourselves to money we don't have.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly
All
right.
right. So I'm very clear the resources that China has to be able to be good for debt. You know, they got all those factories, and I hear they have a few people and everything else, resources around the world. What does the Fed do? I mean, isn't the Fed, in effect, with all these bailouts and everything else, aren't they just paying themselves?
And they're paying themselves, and they're trying to retain their jobs. They're not looking after you or me, and they're also trying to take care of their friends in the banking community. When the head of a major bank calls up and says, save us, save us, save us, they take the call and they do something. You know, if a plumber from Iowa calls up the Fed, they don't take the call. They don't care about the plumbers in Iowa. But if the bankers from Wall Street call, they take the call. But they got to keep their own jobs, too. And so they're worried about their own jobs. I guess they really think that what they're doing is good. Sitting here on the outside, I cannot conceive of how this could be good for America or good for the world. But that's what they're doing. They're taking us down the drain.
Well, they're too far down the road now. I mean, now it's kind of like, now they're just playing for time, don't you think? That maybe a miracle will happen. You have to know
yes,
that this isn't going to work.
You know who's going to save us? The Tooth Fairy. You just hang on. The Tooth Fairy is going to come around. After the next election,
right.
The Tooth Fairy is going to come around, and everything is going to be okay.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I believe you.
But in my day, the Tooth Fairy brought you a silver dime. Now she's going to bring you a fake dime.
You hear about the guy who bought all the pennies? Do you hear that? Was it pennies or nickels that bought all it was.
I knew a guy in the 60s who bought, in the 80s, who bought a lot of pennies and melted them down.
Yeah, no, there's a guy who, I think it's nickels. I can't remember which one it is, but he bought an extraordinary amount of
nickels?
Of nickels, and he said it's
melt them down?
Yeah, it's worth more.
Yeah, but they made that illegal.
I don't know.
Somebody better call him up. Because,
yeah, I know. I don't think
Congress, in its wisdom, this is good for us.
I don't think he melted down. I think he has them. He has them someplace.
Well, if he just has them, it's okay.
Right.
But the government, to take care of us, it's good for us. They made it illegal to melt down your pennies. They made it illegal to melt down your coins. It's it's for your own good.
Yeah, sure.
It's for your own good.
Okay. All right. Let me go through what is going to happen in Europe. How do you see Europe?
Well, it's more the same, Glenn. What they're going to do, they're going to continue to push the problem. They hope to get through the next election, and if they can bail everybody out for a while, this is going to lead to disaster, mind you. What's going to happen is, well, first of all, you cannot solve a problem of too much debt with more debt. I mean, to me, it's just staggering that grown-ups can say something like that out loud. But they do. And you look at them, now, are they lying or are they just fools? In the end, I think they're just fools. I used to think they were lying. Now I think that they're really, literally fools. So it's going to pile
I think they're
up.
Criminals.
Well, that too. Some of them,
foolish criminals.
Some of them are definitely criminals. But what's going to happen is the debt's going to get higher and higher. Right now, you could solve the problem, but they're not. They're going to try to solve the problem by pushing it out to the future.
Okay. Well,
and eventually,
wait.
just you wait.
Right.
In one moment, in a minute, or in a few years.
You from Texas?
No, I'm from Alabama.
From Alabama.
I grew up in Alabama. Are you from Texas?
I'm in about 7 days, but I'm not counting. I'm moving to Texas.
Oh, are you? Well,
yeah.
Well,
I listen. To you. Remember when you were on Fox, and you were like, New York's going to melt down.
Yeah. Oh, that's why you moved to Texas?
I listened to you.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man. When I moved to Asia.
I know. Well, I'm on my way.
But eventually, the market's going to say to the Europeans, "We're not putting up with this anymore. We're not going to lend you any more money." And then we're going to have, what did the Washington Post say? Then we're going to have a recession.
Yeah.
then we're going to have a recession.
Okay. Right.
When the market says to Europe and to America, "We're not going to lend you any more money," then we'll have our recession.
Okay. Back in just a second.